Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is one topic that we as journalists have to dwell with all through the year. As political journalists covering day-to-day politics here in West Bengal, each day we are face to face with massive amount of violence. Each story that comes up, it always ends up becoming a footnote in the long and enormous history of West Bengal. And we move on. There is the immediate outrage followed by a lull and a possible lip service by politicians. It seems like the onus is as much on we as Bengali society, as much on our politicians, and we'll try and seek answers. And therefore, we have three very eminent speakers from the political fraternity here in West Bengal. We are joined by Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharjee, Rajya Sabha MP from the CPIM. So please come on stage. We have Dr. Shashi Panja, member of the West Bengal Cabinet. Please put your hands together. And of course, we have member of the West Bengal Assembly from the BJP, Agnimitra Paul. Ma'am, please. It's wonderful seeing politicians sitting across the table here on the dais. It is something that is expected. What is unexpected though here in West Bengal, you won't see their supporters sitting across the table having chai together at the local neighborhood. They're always up in arms against one another. It's a culture that has been perpetuated over the decades here in West Bengal. How do we stop this cycle of violence? This is the big question. So our topic today, of course, is from the battle of ballot to the battle of bullet. That's indeed, the issue, the burning issue at hand. I would like to start, of course, with Dr. Shashi Panja because she represents the government here. Shashidi, just a few weeks back, we've seen this absolutely heinous crime taking place in Birbhum, where we saw so many people charred to death. And we've moved on. And we've moved on to the next, incident of political violence. When you came to government in 2011, I remember Mamata Banerjee said, "Bodla noy bodol chai," which means that we don't want retribution, we want change. What happened to that path of change? You were traveling towards change, you lost your way, it seems.
No, it's good evening to India Today. Thank you for the kind invitation to be here. Indrajit, it is a bit complex. But let me tell you this, that we abhor violence. We condemn it in the strongest of strong language. And whatever incidents are happening in West Bengal or all over India also deserve condemnation, definitely. Now, having to say that there has been no badal after 2011 would be doing injustice to us. So the badal has to be actually experienced. And I think the people of West Bengal have the development or the pro-development measures have to some extent definitely touched all families of Bengal, which is again reflected in various electoral democracy tests of electoral democracy. Now, we are not arrogant about it, but what I'm trying to say is we are actually trying to delve into or rather get rid of the legacy which we came with. Now, 1977 to when we say 34 years of misrule of the CPIM or the left front with its allies, then it goes, there is data which says, and I just wish to re-mention that, between 1977 to 2009-10, there have been 55,000 political deaths. Now, deaths due to a political reason.
But that's the past.
No, that is vast. Yes, and that is the difference that we are trying to make, to mitigate that, to reduce that. And it cannot be done. And in this state, when there is a complaint of violence due to political reasons, our Chief Minister orders for an SIT or arrests are made and punishment and steps are taken. Now that is also happening, you cannot deny that. We have arrested our own people. We have also lost our own party workers. So this is not that what we are aiming for. There is a consistent agenda. There is a consistent agenda which was very evident last year in 2021 assembly elections, in which there is a ruling party at the center which thought that Paschim Bengal ko kabza kiya. You have to capture West Bengal. You have to win West Bengal. You cannot capture. This is not the days of the emperor that we are out here with our army. And you saw the army which had descended upon on West Bengal. And you saw the narrative which was played out. So that is the kind of narrative which you now see even, which was played out in Maharashtra, or for that matter, in KCR's Telangana. What is happening? That is the narrative. So bulldozing of democratic institutions or democracy is what is the agenda which actually provokes this kind of a reaction in the form of a violence. Why are you trying to provoke that kind of a violence?
Well, but nothing justifies violence in the first place. Agnimitra, you would like to come in on that?
First of all, thank you so much, India Today, for inviting me and taking up such a relevant topic, ballot to bullet and violence. I feel in today's time, standing in today's West Bengal, when you look back, you realize that violence has always been part of West Bengal's politics. When you start from the regime of Siddhartha Shankar Roy, the way he crushed the communist opposition that time, and the Naxal Andolan, killing and brutally killing, whoever belonged to the other ideology. When CPM again came to power, again they took help of violence with Bijon Setu, with Shahi Bari, with Morid Chapi happening. And that time our now Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee had said restoration of democracy was the most important thing. But now after 11 years we see that democracy by this government has been crushed, killed, murdered and raped. After 2021 elections, we saw BJP's 56 karyakartas brutally murdered. And then also our Honourable Chief Minister had said, no, nothing had happened. It was a very slight, I think today also she said, it was a little thing. But the Honourable Court then said that there is no law of land over here. There is only law of the ruler. And it is not only about violence. It is not only about killing. It is not only about the guns and the bombs. It is about the words, the language that you use. Honourable Chief Minister is the captain of the ship. She is our Chief Minister. But the way she has been using language, 3 days back she said she is declaring jihad against BJP, West Bengal. What does she mean by jihad? Because for me, jihad means, it's an Arabic word which means killing of non-Islamist. So does she want to say that she wants to kill all BJP people?
Let's take that question to Shashi Panja.
That is the problem with the BJP, They bring in religion, they bring in caste, they bring in language. And first it is the identity politics. And then the division begins of India, which has already begun. You see, you have misinterpreted again. The jihad is against the bulldozing of democracy. The jihad is again the bulldozing of the democratic institutions. It's so unfortunate there are institutions in India which should be insulated from politics. But, there are not insulated from politics. So they are very much politically used weapons which are used at times of convenience, like elections, etc., etc. Now, have you ever heard of vigilantism? Cow vigilantism, new terms, new coinage. Have you heard of, bulldozing people's houses just at the time when you thought that the support is not with you? Have you heard of the press freedom index touching the lowest in India? Are we proud about this? I mean, what is it? What is it? The main issues are not discussed. Nobody discusses inflation. Nobody discusses the petrol gas issue. So these are issues of people. Where will they go? There is no answer to it. See, what is provoking them? We don't want violence. You see, ultimately, they're hit against the wall. Look at the casteism, look at the Dalit killings.
Let's bring in Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharya. Sir, we've spoken about the reasons of violence. I mean, whenever such a discussion takes place, we get into rhetorics, we get into whataboutery. But what the Aam Janta, the people here, what they're interested in is a solution. You've been in government for 3 decades. and then, of course, Mamata Banerjee's government. You've been in power, and you are now the opposition. Where do you think, as a politician, and also as an eminent lawyer, politicians have failed in this entire discourse? Do you still think that West Bengal requires a leader of the caliber of, say, suppose, a Subhash Chandra Bose, to bring political differences aside and somehow build a narrative of unity?
There is no doubt about it. But at the very beginning, I condemn this attitude of blame game. Whenever something is pointed out that this is happening, instead of coming to any solution or having any thought about the reasons to make this situation ease, we always point our fingers to others. This is the most abhorrent picture which we have to avoid. Number one. Number two, we definitely need political leaders who speak sense, who speaks in decent language, whose body language, while addressing the Aam Janta, the mass, must be very civilized. If you use language, if you speak something nonsense, then you always encourage your community to be a little more nonsense. And that gives you the sense of getting something by force. You see, from 1977 onwards, there were definitely some killings, but those killings were not of political parties' internal rivalry fight. Those killings were almost some sort of class war. When the government came into power in 1977, they had a land policy by virtue of which the land tillers were given the right to till. There were clashes between the landowner and the land tillers. That was not a clash between CPIM or TMC or BJP. When the workers assembled over there and launched their struggle for the enhancement of the wages, then the employers used to hire the gundas to beat up the workers. That caused bloodshed. But there was never a situation when somebody goes to cast his vote, he will be prevented from filing nomination, he will be prevented from going to the poll to cast his vote. And again, if you even reach the polling station, your vote would be casted by somebody else, being physically present over there. These are the situations I am not going to really encourage this blame game. I feel that if the political parties really fight on their ideological issues, that this is my ideology which can bring sustenance in the life of the common man, and their ideological issues or political issues, economic issues, these are not good. If the message goes to the common man from the leaders that you better inculcate your philosophy, your thought process on the economic issues, on other issues of your own life's upgradation, then there will be no political violence. Here the political violence is because of petty cash consideration, which we call tolabaji. Here in West Bengal, after 2011 onwards, still there, the people are fighting, even the people inter-se fighting of the same political party.
And I don't think the audience here today will disagree with me when I say that there has always been political patronage to such violence. In fact, many political parties think it's a logical, logical way or justified means of reaching out and holding on to their power. And that's something which is really, really unfortunate. But when we talk about violence of language, the way leaders speak, and that instigates, the armed followers on the ground, and then you don't find a situation in your control. You say, wriggle out. Politicians should be held accountable. Ognidi, I would like to ask you, we've heard what Nupur Sharma said. We've seen the kind of chain reaction that was triggered across the country, and she was merely suspended. Why did your government not initiate stern action against her for not just bringing such shame to the country on the global stage, but also leading such a widespread violence across the country?
What stern action are you talking about? Nupur Sharma is a very senior spokesperson of the party. She has been suspended by her senior leaders. The case is a sub judice matter.
But would you not expect much more stern action against her? Would you not expect the BJP government to...
It is not BJP's or Mr. Modiji's responsibility to put her into jail. For that, court is there. Court is, proceedings are going on.
But have we heard from the Prime Minister?
If the court
have we
finds
heard
it out...
an unequivocal condemnation from the top BJP
This is not our Prime Minister's responsibility. This is not his responsibility. 30 minutes back, there was an interview which you took and you spoke about another journalist. Now you will say that I will ask you, why hasn't the Prime Minister spoke about that journalist? It is not our Honourable Prime Minister's responsibility. And coming to Honourable Shashi's statement, what she was saying, I'm very privileged to share the same stage with her. But are we supposed to learn democracy from TMC? TMC, inside the assembly, we MLAs are being beaten because we raised the topic of Baktui. We raised the topic of Hashkali. Our women MLAs were beaten inside the assembly, not outside.
Why doesn't the TMC, which has such massive majority in West Bengal,
you are not
lead with
supposed
example?
to speak.
The simple fact of the matter was, or is, and remains, is that nothing of such things happened. You see, unfortunately, the MLAs who have been elected from the BJP party, they represent a constituency. They are responsible and accountable to the constituency, and their prime duty is that they should be in assembly within the precincts, within the assembly hall when the session is on. But unfortunately, they are most of the times beyond the hall of the assembly where the session takes place. They are outside protesting.
But
so they are never in the assembly.
When we were beaten, were we inside, ma'am, or were we outside?
Yeah.
We were inside and we wanted to
We
speak
all
on
know that the
Baktui.
assembly
But
has
Honourable
marshals.
Speaker didn't let us
There
speak.
are marshals inside
We are
the
not
assembly.
supposed to raise such questions which are uncomfortable for the government. Ashkali,
I'm
Baktui
so sorry
is
to say that
uncomfortable.
when
Because
she is talking about Rampur Hat or Baktui, Honourable Chief Minister was there at the spot. You see, Narendra Modi ji or the Honourable Prime Minister does not reach the spot where the farmers were protesting for 1 year.
Of course, she was there.
When
we
they
are very
get run
happy.
over.
Honourable Chief Minister
Let's
reached
have
there.
a civic. Let's have a civic debate, please.
But the thing is that the police were waiting
let's
outside.
have a civic debate.
No, the people should know.
No, you cannot do
the
that.
police
No,
were
you
waiting
cannot do
outside
that.
Just
Baktui
hear her
You
out.
cannot do that.
Just
You have
hear
to
her
hear
out.
me
Police
out.
were
please.
We'll come to you. Just hear her out.
Don't do that. Don't do another bulldozing. That's what I was mentioning.
Bulldozing has
Don't
been done.
bulldoze.
Killing
Don't try
democracy
to
is
bulldoze
done by
the
this
opposition.
TMC government.
She is talking about opposition Mukt Bharat and all that. They are talking about opposition Mukt Bharat. Imagine. And here she is saying that they are the opposition, the vulnerable opposition.
our audience-
And what have they done in Tripura? What did they do in Tripura? Did they even allow a nomination?
Well,
Tripura
Shashi,
people
or
gave
even
you the
allow
result.
all
Shashi,
people
the
to
very
vote?
point of-
People gave the
So,
result.
you cannot do
After
this.
so much of it, you got
Alright.
the result.
Civic in
Sashini,
a
the very
debate.
point of this
We are not
debate
in
was, Sashini, just a sec. The very point of this debate was to get over whataboutery and possibly find a solution. And our audience has got a sense of what's wrong with politics today. You know, whenever issues like these, issues in principle come up, and when politicians are held accountable, we always see passing of the buck. I would like to end with Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharya and ending comments from all of them. Suggest me one solution. We are really asking for one. You know, we know that most often it is said that we get the government we deserve, we get the politicians we deserve. But I'm sure this is not the kind of politics that any of us deserve. So I start with Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharya. What should be the solution? What should be done? The first steps for West Bengal to break this violence, cycle of violence.
I am not talking only about West Bengal. My impression is that the political leaders throughout the country first read our constitution, appreciate our constitution, and try to inculcate the constitutional values and morality. None of the key leaders, the majority, really do know what is the essence of our constitution. Instead of fulfilling the goals of the constitution, the social justice, economic justice, liberty of thought and expression, and the dignity of person, these are the very important issues for the republic to run. Our politicians in majority do not understand that. Let them first get themselves educated on this. That will resolve many critical issues here in the country.
So going back to the classroom, Ognidi.
See, Honourable Chief Minister is the captain of the ship, as I was saying. She needs to show the way. If she is declaring a jihad, that is, she is declaring a religious war against, this religious thing is being started by her. And talking about Baktui,
No, but Shashi,
Madam Minister said that she had gone there to help
what is
those
the solution?
people.
What in your mind is a solution to this problem?
Solution, we all need to be there together. MLAs of the opposition are a very important part of the assembly. We shouldn't be stopped if we ask questions on Baktui and Hashkali. These students who are protesting in beside Red Road, they are being picked up and beaten by Kolkata police.
I think I will take
Where is
that
democracy?
I think I will take that as an olive branch, Shashidi.
No,
Ending comments.
You see,
What's
you have
the solution?
to allow the democratic institutions to survive and function. You have to allow institutions which are there, like CBI and ED, not to be utilized for political reasons and political vendetta. You cannot get back at the back of the opposition because you cannot utkhat them. You
But
cannot
beyond this
uproot
rhetoric,
them.
Shashidi,
So the
what is the
solution
solution?
is allow democracy to function in this country. You see, you almost made Bikashda the middleman or the referee, when we two are arguing. But, historical facts cannot be discounted. You cannot forget the 1977, the 34 years of misrule. You cannot forget that even their leaders have given speeches which you will be shocked to hear and which actually allow. No, it is not about whataboutery. It is about historical facts which you cannot deny.
Absolutely.
So from there you have to learn.
But our
So
Honourable
therefore-
Chief Minister said,
are we
"Bodla nahi
learning?
bodol
You
chai."
did away with
This is the
CPI,
bodol that we
and
get.
you're bringing
All
in
right.
BJP,
This is the bodol we
which
get.
is an
Completely
equally
run out of
violent
time.
party.
BJP karyakartas
Which
get
is an equally
murdered.
violent party.
Let us-
BJP
let us-
karyakartas
she
get
has-
murdered. This is the
Do I-
bodol we get.
No, Agnimitra, at least
Okay.
have the decency to allow me to
Okay,
talk
ladies,
when
let
I'm
us-
speaking.
let
Ma'am,
us-
you are giving wrong facts, and
No,
this
no,
is a
no,
national
as if you
channel.
were correct.
Let entire India know what is
have
happening
the
in West
decency.
Bengal.
Ms. Paul,
There is
The
no
entire
democracy.
India
Dr.
knows
Panja, let
what
us
you have
end
done
on
to
an-
democracy.
Ms. Paul,
You
Dr.
people
Panja,
are
let us
they're
end
talking
on an
about
Your
amicable note.
government has
bring
destroyed and
freedoms to
murdered
the
and
opposition.
raped
What have you done in
democracy
Maharashtra,
All right, let us
Karnataka?
end on an amicable
Maharashtra,
note.
Shiv Sena
What have you
has
done in
taken-
Maharashtra,
Shiv Sena
Karnataka?
has taken
We are completely out of time.
BJP is not happy.
You
No,
think that
no
Indians
part.
don't
Agnimitra
understand
ji.
Indian
Shiv Sena has taken
democracy
the call.
is so naive?
If somebody
You think the
forgets-
democracy is so
If
naive
somebody
not to
forgets-
understand?
Completely
Their,
out of time.
ideology, nothing can be held.
You know, the very point of this discussion was to find a solution, to find a solution as to how one can end this entire cycle of violence and possibly the narrative that is associated with West Bengal politics right now. What you saw on stage, of course, shows you what's wrong with politics. There is something that Bikash Ranjan Bhattacharya has said. Possibly all our politicians can once again head back to the classroom and read up the constitution so that at least with pride we can say we get the government we deserve. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this conversation.